prepare yourself for a descent into madness as we uncover the chilling truth behind a marriage torn asunder by dark forces. In a tale that defies reason and tests the limits of sanity, witness the harrowing ordeal of a woman trapped in the clutches of her malevolent mother-in-law. But beware, for what you are about to hear is not just a story, it's a warning. Brace yourselves for Cursed by My Mother-in-Law, a tale that will haunt your dreams and leave you questioning the very nature of love itself. Let me introduce myself. I am a 23-year-old woman, and I have a beautiful 1-year-old daughter. In 2 weeks, my little girl will turn 2 years old. 9 years ago, I met my husband. We were both 15 years old. I loved this boy with all my heart and would have given my life for him. For this story, I will call him Ronald. Ronald was my everything. Nothing on this earth could keep me away from him. So I told my father about my beloved. My father said to me, "Sweetheart, this won't work because he is Muslim, and eventually it will clash. There are too many cultural differences, and it will only cause problems." Often, Muslim men, after enjoying themselves with a girl from another faith, eventually want a real Muslim woman at home. Don't waste your time and end it. You are also so young, you don't even know what you really want. But as much in love as I was, I simply didn't listen to my father's advice. I continued my relationship with Ronald in secret. When I turned 19, the relationship between us was still going strong. But the annoying thing was that my parents were already looking for a husband for me for marriage at that age. I was strongly against this and said to them, "Why are you looking for someone for me when I already have Ronald? He is the one I care about and want to share my life with." Of course, they already knew who I was talking about, because parents are not stupid. Plus, I kept talking about him, so they eventually figured it out. My parents said, "Okay, we cannot stop you and tell you what to do. So bring that boy home and let us see who he is and have a good conversation with him. Since you have been together for so long, maybe we were mistaken about him, and there is real love involved." I was, of course, very happy that my parents reacted this way, and a meeting between my parents and Ronald was quickly arranged. The meeting went very calmly, and everything was discussed. My father asked if he was serious about me and would always be there for me. He promised my parents that, so a date for the wedding was immediately set. Ronald had come to our home that day with his mother, who wanted me to convert to the Muslim faith. I loved Ronald and would gladly do that for him. I promised his mother I would dedicate myself to the faith. Martha, my mother-in-law, also said to me, "I want to be the one to buy your wedding dress for your wedding. I would love to see you wear it on that special day. Do you agree?" I said, "Of course, I am very happy that you want to do this for me, and will wear the dress as you would like." In my heart, I was enormously happy that my mother-in-law also wanted to contribute to our wedding, and she seemed quite enthusiastic. As a young teenage girl, what more could you want? Everything seemed to be going smoothly because my parents were finally willing to accept Ronald as a son-in-law in our lives. And Ronald's strict Muslim mother was super cooperative. She wanted to help plan every detail of the wedding. Weeks, months, and days before the wedding, Martha kept coming to our home to discuss new details of the wedding with my parents and me. Normally, we would always sit on our balcony when my future mother-in-law, Martha, visited. One day, when Martha was visiting, I suddenly went into a trance, as if I was taken over by another spirit. I really can't explain it, but I completely lost it. I had to be told later by my parents that I went into a trance and no longer knew who I was. Martha looked shocked at my parents and asked what exactly was wrong with me. My parents said they knew even less because this was the first time it had happened to me. Martha then said, "I have someone who can help her with what has happened to her, because it is not normal for her to suddenly start acting so strangely. This person will be able to help her." My parents were desperate and gave Martha permission to take me somewhere for help. I was taken to a mosque somewhere where a man performed several rituals. He finally gave me 3 pieces of paper with some things written on them. I didn't understand the language written on the papers. He said to me, "Take these papers and put them in a glass of water. When you see that the paper has become completely blank and all the letters are no longer visible, remove the paper from the glass and drink the water." I did as I was told, and I had to repeat this for 3 days. I also received a necklace from this man, which I was supposed to always wear for spiritual protection. A bit of my hair was also cut, and I saw the man place it in a piece of cotton fabric. I heard him recite a few verses over this package containing my hair. Then the man said to me, "Take this package and bury it in the front yard of your parents' house." At that time, I was still living with my parents because I wasn't married yet. So, this man wanted me to bury this thing at my parents' home. I refused to do this because I was afraid my parents would catch me burying something strange on their property. What would they think of me? I really didn't want to do it. I just didn't dare. If you bury this package, it will only benefit you, and you will never have attacks or act crazy again. You don't want this to happen to you again, do you? The man said to me. Of course, I didn't want that. I wanted to have a normal life without problems with Ronald. Eventually, Ronald decided to bury the package on the property of my parents' home. How he did it without being caught, I don't know. But he managed to do it, and I was relieved because I just wanted to move on with my life. After that, the preparations for our wedding continued in full swing. No one was as happy as I was. Ronald and I would finally be officially together. A few days before our wedding, Martha called me. She said, "Sweetheart, I know I promised you that wedding dress, but unfortunately, I don't have the money for it. So can you buy the dress with your own money for now? I'll pay you back as soon as I have some money available." I told her it shouldn't be a problem and that we would do it as she asked. In the back of my mind, I thought, shit, what will my parents say about this? They really won't be okay with it because my mother-in-law had clearly promised to buy the dress for me. And now she suddenly comes at me with this. I decided not to tell my parents about it because they would be extremely disappointed in those people. I didn't want anything to ruin our beautiful day. So I comforted myself with the fact that Martha said I would get the money back and that there was nothing else to worry about. I bought the dress with my own money, and in a way, I was happy that I could choose something of my own taste. But to my surprise, my mother-in-law often came to my workplace to ask for money. At first, she did it once, and I thought, well, Anyone can have a problem now and then, so why not help her out of her trouble? But after that time, she came more often to my workplace to ask for money. She did this under the pretense of, "My children have nothing to eat at home. I don't know how else to put food on the table. Please help me." I had no choice. I felt like I couldn't refuse, so I kept giving money to this woman. The wedding finally happened, and I moved in with my mother-in-law because Ronald was still living with his mother. Shortly after the wedding, it turned out that I was expecting. One morning, just before I was about to go to school, I woke up Martha because I wanted to share the happy news with her first. I thought she would be thrilled, but she didn't seem happy at all when I told her. I let it go, thinking she might need time to process it. At school, my classmates were happy for me and congratulated me. I felt really pampered and received many compliments and kind wishes from them. But when I got home to my mother-in-law, I immediately became very ill upon entering the house. And from the day I informed my mother-in-law about this, I was continuously sick. I was terribly ill throughout my pregnancy. I kept vomiting blood, and when I went to the toilet, blood came out as well. Things were bad for me, and I also refused to eat. I constantly wanted to be alone and locked myself in the bedroom. Looking back now, this was very strange behavior for me because I usually don't like being alone. And yet, this behavior persisted throughout my pregnancy. I kept locking myself up. My mother-in-law then came up with all sorts of strange rules that Ronald and I had to do everything separately from that moment on. We had to eat separately, cook separately. He had to stay away from me as much as possible. There were constant arguments with me, and I never fought back. I just kept my mouth shut. The most cruel and mean things were said to me, and I swallowed it all, as if I had become completely submissive. I just let it all wash over me. The atmosphere at home was no longer pleasant, and I was no longer happy there. This continued until I had an attack in my 8th month because my blood pressure was sky high. It was 250, and I was urgently hospitalized. They waited 2 days to see if I would calm down with the necessary rest and a different environment. But unfortunately, my blood pressure didn't go down. It just stayed high, and despite their efforts, there was no change. The doctor feared that something would happen to me or the baby, so it was decided to deliver the baby as soon as possible via C-section. I had a beautiful daughter, but there were many problems with her. Issues with her heart and lungs were detected. They weren't functioning properly, and they also discovered she had a blood deficiency. Shortly after the operation, I went completely crazy again, as if I was suddenly taken over by invisible forces. I didn't know who I was. I didn't recognize my own name. I didn't know where I was or why I was there. I asked the people around me who they were and what they wanted from me. As I was told, I also said, "I'm on fire. It's really too hot for me. Someone is burning me. I can't take it anymore. Help me. I'm really burning. Take me to the bathroom so I can stand under the shower, or I will burn completely." Later, I wanted to look in the mirror to see who I was, what I looked like, because I wanted to have an idea of whose body I had. Of course, the people in the hospital didn't understand what was happening to me. This madness of mine lasted exactly 2 days. I call this madness because I was not myself anymore, and it was as if another spirit had entered my body. But I am not crazy. I just couldn't explain what was happening to me. After After 2 days, I was suddenly myself again, and it was as if nothing had happened. I remembered everything again, but since I was afraid that these attacks would suddenly happen again, I decided to quit school. I was in the 3rd grade when I left. My baby stayed in the hospital for almost 2 months for observation. When she got a little better, and I was allowed to take her home, I constantly had arguments with my mother-in-law. She always seemed to be looking for a fight, to belittle and insult me. I never really understood this, because I always did my best to be loved by her. I love her son Ronald deeply. So, I wanted to be good to this woman with all my heart. Why she was always mean to me, I really don't understand. But the arguments became so bad that I was eventually thrown out of the house with my newborn baby and Ronald. We were literally homeless. We were then taken in by Uncle Patrick, a relative of Ronald. Life was much better for us there, and the atmosphere was finally more positive than it had been at Martha's home. After we had been living with Uncle Patrick for a few months, Martha called us to say she regretted her behavior. She wanted to make amends and acknowledged all the mistakes she had made in the past. She asked us to visit her so we could talk things out. As I mentioned, I wanted peace and didn't want to live with tension, so I went to see my mother-in-law. During that period, my mother-in-law had left her husband for another man. She also left 3 small children in the family home when she moved in with her new man. I decided to take care of those 3 children because I couldn't bear to see them neglected. I also had the care of my own baby, so it was quite challenging with all these children, but I did it with all my heart. After a little over a month, when things between Martha and her new partner didn't work out, she came back home with her tail between her legs. When Martha returned, she said to Ronald, "Why don't you all come back to live with me now that we've talked everything out? There won't be any more arguments." I told Ronald I didn't want to do this because I remembered the horrible period I had there. Ronald wanted to go back to his mother, so I let him visit her, so he could never accuse me of keeping him away from her. Eventually, after Ronald's persistent urging, I moved back in with his mother. And sure enough, the argument started again, just as always. Before we continue the story, please leave a like for us so we can grow our channel. Martha kicked us out again, as if she had forgotten all her kind words. We moved back in with Uncle Patrick after a few weeks. We didn't stay there long because he grew tired of our drama. My parents then took us in. One day, Ronald suddenly called from work to tell me he was going to visit his mother because he missed her very much. "Okay, fine. Go ahead then. We'll see each other later." "Take care," I said. That same afternoon, he called and said, "I'm going to sleep here because tomorrow morning I have some construction work to do with my stepfather and brother, so it's easier if I sleep here. I'll come home afterward, just letting you know." Once again, being the understanding wife, I agreed, even though his decision was already made. When the afternoon came and he was supposed to come home, I received another message from him saying, "I got home really late. I'm exhausted, so I'll stay here tonight." This went on for a while. Days, weeks passed, and he always had other reasons and the most bizarre excuses for why he couldn't come home. He didn't even come home to see me, as if he had forgotten about me in an instant. I found this extremely strange behavior from him because this was not what I was used to. Why all these excuses to not come back to his family. What was going on? I asked him why he was stringing me along. He assured me he wasn't, and that it was just my imagination. After stringing me along with lies that he would come back for months, Ronald suddenly called my mother to tell her he didn't want to be with me anymore because his mother wanted it that way. According to her, I wasn't suitable for her son, despite everything I had done for her. I had always shown nothing but respect for Ronald's mother. Later, Martha called my father to say she wanted her son back. My father said she should do what made her happy. We couldn't force Ronald to love me, so we let it go. Ronald hasn't come back to me since. As he told me, his mother arranged another girlfriend for him. So, he didn't have time to think about me. When I sometimes call him, he curses at me with every vile term imaginable. Sometimes, I wonder why I keep chasing after him, because he gives me the most disgusting treatment a man can give a woman. When he curses at me like that, I always hear his mother laughing proudly in the background. She does this almost every time, apparently. Ronald puts the phone on speaker. You might wonder why I let myself be treated this way, while this man constantly curses at me and calls me all sorts of vile names. I don't know the answer myself, but he has been my first and only partner. I have loved Ronald since I was 15, and am still married to him. We haven't divorced. I know Martha used witchcraft to break us apart because Ronald was always a very sweet boy and treated me wonderfully. But when I look back on the days before our marriage, when I suddenly started having attacks as if I were going crazy and didn't know who I was anymore, it all started when Martha began coming to my parents' house. That's when the problems began. They were spiritual, or maybe demonic attacks. I was constantly treated like dirt, and I just took it as if I no longer had my own opinion. Also, when I had my baby and went completely crazy in the hospital again, all the work of Martha, because when she heard about such things happening to me, she didn't even seem shocked or sympathetic. She just laughed meanly, as if she knew more about it. No one laughs like that when they've seen how serious it is when I have those crazy attacks. It's nothing to laugh about, especially if I'm your daughter-in-law. But this woman made so many remarks that I'm almost certain she used voodoo on me. But even after all that I was willing to fight for my family, I wanted my husband back. Ronald needed to come back to me and our daughter. I visited him at work, begged, cried, got on my knees for him, but nothing helped. He told me, "Even if you die, I don't care. I don't want you anymore. Nothing in my body has any feelings for you anymore." I asked him, "Ronald, look me in the eyes and tell me all the feelings are gone and that you really don't want me anymore." He refused to look me in the eyes, no matter how long I begged him to. "Go ahead and die. I don't want you. And nothing about you matters to me," he kept saying, laughing, while others stood watching. Months had passed since Ronald's cruel rejection, and I was left picking up the pieces of my shattered life. Each day felt like a battle, but I refused to let Martha's dark influence defeat me. I delved into research, seeking all knowledge about voodoo and spiritual protection. My determination grew stronger with each passing day. One evening, as I sat alone with my daughter, a sudden knock on the door startled me. My heart raced as I opened it to find an elderly woman standing there, her eyes wise and kind. She introduced herself as Nana, a revered healer in the community. Word of my problems had reached her, and she had come to help. Nana performed a series of rituals, cleansing my home and surrounding it with protective energies. She taught me how to strengthen my own spiritual defenses. Slowly but surely, I began to feel a sense of peace and empowerment that had long eluded me. But the real turning point came when Ronald unexpectedly showed up at my parents' house, looking disheveled and tormented. "I need to talk to you," he said, his voice trembling. It turned out that Martha's new girlfriend for him had vanished under mysterious circumstances, and Ronald had been experiencing bizarre, unexplainable phenomena ever since. "She cursed us both," Ronald admitted, tears streaming down his face. "I didn't believe it at first, but I can't deny it anymore. I'm sorry for everything." With Nana's guidance, we confronted Martha together. It was a battle not just of wills, but of spirits. Nana's rituals were powerful, but Martha's dark voodoo was strong. In the end, it was our combined determination and the purity of our intentions that broke Martha's hold. Martha fled, never to be seen again, and peace slowly returned to our lives. Ronald and I decided to rebuild our relationship, this time with mutual respect and understanding. It wasn't easy, but we were committed to healing the wounds of the past. My story is a testament to the power of resilience and the strength that lies within us all. No matter how dark the circumstances, there is always a way to reclaim your life and find happiness again. Thank you for following my journey. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to like this post. Your support means the world to me and helps me share more stories like this one.